City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to our December 11th regular City Council meeting. Joanna, 7 o'clock, will you do the roll call, please?
Mayor Dodge.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Escobar.
Here.
Councilmember Sowers. Here. Councilmember Lighty. Here. Councilmember Joe Brown. Councilmember Becky Brown. Councilmember Whitman. Here. Councilmember Mullica. Here. Councilmember Wilford.
Present. Will you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any response to citizen inquiry?
No updates on that item tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any agenda additions or deletions? Hearing none, we will move into the important matter of the evening. Will the Honorable Corinne Majid please come forward? She's our Northglenn Municipal Judge, and she is going to do this oath of office for our Ward 2 Council member, Joyce Downing.
All right. Please raise your hand. Repeat after me. I, Joyce Downing.
I, Joyce Downing.
Do solemnly swear.
Solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution of the State of Colorado.
The Constitution of the State of Colorado.
And the City Charter.
And the City Charter.
And ordinances. Of the City of Northglenn. And will faithfully perform the duties. Of the office of council member.
Of
the City of Northglenn. Upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, come join us.
All right.
I was going to originally say how happy I was to have the entire council seated tonight, but now Becky is absent, so that's just kind of a bummer. So we're almost all together, but welcome, and it's great to have you here, Joyce.
Thank you.
All right, we will move to public invited to be heard. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Does anyone like to come forward? You want to come forward, don't you? You look like you have something to say to us. No? No? Oh, I was hoping you did. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, seeing no one come forward, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Joanna, will you open the vote, please?
Vote is open.
The consent.
Open the first public hearing for CB 1900 for supplemental appropriation. Joanna, can you read the title, please?
And appropriating expenditures by supplemental appropriation for the payment of the costs and expenses of the municipal government, agencies, and offices of the City of Northglenn, Colorado for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2017.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify for or against CB 1900? No one? Okay, hearing none, I will close that public hearing, and we will move into the next public hearing, CB 1901, wireless service facilities.
A bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Article 55 of Chapter 11 of the Northglenn Municipal Code concerning the regulation of wireless service facilities.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to testify for or against CB 1901? Seeing no one come forward, I will close that public hearing, and we will move into ordinance's second reading of CB 1900, the supplemental appropriation. The title was already read, so Jim, could you just give us a brief description, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a special ordinance to amend the 2017 operating and capital improvement budget. You heard this on first reading on November 13th. And pursuant to the municipal code, council may, by ordinance, amend any appropriation to conform with the budget as adopted or amended, and shall do so to the extent that any such appropriation is affected by any supplemental appropriation, emergency appropriation, reduction of appropriations, or transfer. There's a lot of detail in the memo that outlines all of the funds and the uses of these funds. The proposed ordinance itself will increase budget appropriations by $1.9 million, and we've detailed what the individual fund appropriations are. General fund is approximately $345,000. Conservation Trust, $300,000, Capital Projects Fund, $1.12 million, and the Stormwater Fund, $200,000. A lot of these are receiving grants as well, so that's why the total impact on the general fund is really $345,000 here. I'm available to answer any questions, as well as Mr. Loveland, our Finance Director.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? No? Okay, hearing none. Joanna, will you open the vote?
There's a motion on the table.
I'm sorry.
Or,
yes.
yeah.
No, there's not. Okay. Somebody like to make a move to approve?
Second.
All right. Now will you open the vote?
Yes. The vote is open.
Discuss the CB 1901, the wireless service facilities. And Jim, also, will you give a description, please?
You want to take your motion first?
I'm sorry. Yep. I'm still in public hearings. Yes, I'm sorry. Can I get a move to approve? Move to approve. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Sorry, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor.
You.
So this is a ordinance to repeal and replace the city's current commercial mobile radio service facilities, or CMRS ordinance, which is found Article 55, Chapter 11, to replace it with a section on wireless service facilities, or WSF. The name has changed, if you will, over the years, and so this is a new way they're designated by the FCC. The ordinance was drafted, of course, in concert with the city attorney, taking into account a lot of the federal and state legislation, including Colorado House Bill 171193, that requires us to take this action. This was approved at first reading on November 13th, and we do recommend approval of second reading tonight. And I'm here, of course, to answer any questions, as well as Mr. Hoffman or Becky Smith from the Planning Department.
Any discussion on this item? Yes, Jordan.
On page 2 of 40, at number 3, abandoned WSF shall be removed within 180 days. So it's within the 180 days, and who is going to go out and make sure that it is removed within the 180 days? So we don't have them.
I think we would be providing notice, number one, to any WSF provider or WCF provider that would be placing these in our community. And then because they would be in our right-of-way, I believe we would have the right to remove them ourselves.
Okay, perfect. That was my question.
And actually, Becky, I had a question too. The paragraph that you're replacing seemed to have a lot more, I mean, it was more definitive with where it could be placed, and then the paragraph that you've inserted seems just a little more open. Is there a reason for that? Is that what the Planning Commission changed about it?
Council. The paragraph was added really to provide a screening that's consistent with how we would screen mechanical equipment on roofing material. So really it was just to allow us to review the architectural as far as is it going to be visible, and if it is, we can now have them screen it so that it's not as visible from roof-mounted structures.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or discussion? Joanna, would you open the vote, please? We'll move into ordinance's first reading, CB 1902. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending sections 10-19-2 and 10-20-2 of the Northglenn Municipal Code to further limit the number of plants that may be grown in residential structures.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. Now, members of council, this is a request to consider limiting the number of marijuana plants that may be grown in residential structures to no more than 12 plants per residence, which amend 2 sections of the municipal code. This allows the city to adopt the same statewide limitation that is found in House Bill 17-1220, which actually goes into effect January 1st. So we do recommend approval of this, and if it's approved tonight, second reading will occur, I believe, January 8th. Mr. Hoffman, as well as Commander Osgood, are here to answer any additional questions you may have, too.
All right, any questions? Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor. What is the current max?
There is no current max.
It's
The way the current ordinance is drafted, it takes into account both constitutional provisions of 6 per person, but then has a limitation on space, a limitation on emissions, and other impacts on the neighborhood. This is an overlay so that all of the additional restrictions still apply, but now it's a total of 12 no matter how many residents you may have. Previously, if you had, let's say, 5 residents that were over the age of 21, under the constitutional language, you could strictly have, say, 30. This is a limitation that essentially, again, overlays that to the state limit of 12.
So you talked about maybe making the possibility of having an exception of more than 12 plants if the city would be able to grant that. Is that correct?
Not under this language, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yeah.
Corey, if using the current plan that we have right now, a household has 18 plants, how do we get back to 12?
Again, this is a code enforcement issue, and from an enforcement perspective, without getting too far into what the police do, while this is a code enforcement issue, certainly when you're looking at something like marijuana being grown in a residence, I would always recommend that if code enforcement is doing what we refer to as a knock and talk, that they have a police officer with them. But this is a mechanism. Typically, the way the way the police department or code enforcement learns about this is through smell, through lighting, through some impact on the neighborhood. And so, if there are complaints or some other impact on the neighborhood, then that gives the police and code enforcement an opportunity to use this as a tool to enforce. But ultimately, our court is the one that would issue the order saying, you're in violation and you have to reduce it to 12.
Commander Osgood, do we have a history of complaints?
Good evening, Mayor and distinguished council. Yes, sir, we do.
And can you give us
we get
a brief summary whether...
We get a couple a year, whether it's just like Mr. Hoffman said, if it's an owner investigation or we see a bunch of traffic or some people see plants coming in and out of residences, and we do exactly like he says, we go and do a knock and talk to see if it fits within the ordinance and the statute that we currently have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Jenny?
Thank you very much. I want to follow up on one of the comments that you just made, Corey, about if a code enforcement officer goes to a resident in addition to a police officer, and they smell something, that then they can go in and count the number of plants? That seems very concerning.
So here, to get into a little more detail, I talked about a knock and talk. That's consensual. So it is, we got a complaint, and I'm not suggesting the code enforcement officer is walking down the street sniffing. What I'm suggesting is a citizen makes a complaint of there's an odor coming from the residence. The first step would then be for someone to do, again, the knock and talk. Someone can say, no, you're not welcome in my home. Under the Fourth Amendment, they have that right. And then there's a determination as to whether to seek a warrant or seek some other remedy to determine if someone's in compliance. But that's the mechanism in terms of how it works. Because the ordinance as drafted without the 12-plant limitation is intended to make it so that your growing of medical or recreational marijuana does not have an impact on your neighbor. And if there's a complaint based on smell or based on light, you're violating the ordinance.
Follow-up question. I'm really curious. Have you ever been around somebody who smoked pot?
Yes. Well, there's a difference between someone smoking pot and I think the odor of a grow. And so that's part of what the training is. And so the smell that typically is something that triggers a complaint is not someone smoking pot. That's typically a different violation that might be consumption in public as opposed to in private, which is authorized by the Constitution. This is the type of complaints related to a grow.
Okay. And then you previously said that that we have to pass this, right? Or no?
No. So the city is not subject to the limitations in House Bill 1220. But it gives a guideline that the state has adopted that basically says we think 12 plants is enough, and it's a basis for the city to do the same. But the city is under no obligation to do so.
Okay, and so the only enforcement mechanism for this is if there is a police officer in the person's home and able to determine how many plants they have. Is there any other enforcement mechanism?
Oh, absolutely. Someone could be there for a social event and report them. I mean, there's a whole host of other ways. Do I think that's likely? No. Typically what happens is that a grow has an impact on the neighbor, and that starts the investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Julie? Yeah, Mayor. Is there any idea, and maybe, Jim, maybe this is for you, how many complaints we've had from our residents regarding the amount of marijuana plants in our city? Do you have any idea at all?
Mine would be anecdotal. I think Commander Osgood maybe, I heard him say we've had a few.
Okay.
I know of one specifically within the last month or two, but really mine's anecdotal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Jordan?
Corey, can you explain to me, I think the second page of your document, paragraph on the second page, bold, underlined, what exactly that means? Because that's what I took it as. You know, if there's a permit, then there can be an exception to the rule by providing more than 12 plants, but maybe it was...
Permits in the context of my memo means allows. So there's no permit. In other words, Northglenn does not have to pass this ordinance. If Northglenn doesn't permit more than 12 plants, so that's what this ordinance is doing, is going to the state allowance of 12 if adopted. If you don't adopt it, then it doesn't apply in Northglenn, then there's no 12 plant limitation.
Any other questions? I would just like to share, because it happened in my neighborhood, and I would just say that exactly what Commander Osgood and City Manager Hayes said, is that the citizens notice things first. The neighbors notice things, they report things to the police, and the police take care of it. They handled it. You know, they went in and they did their job. So yes, I would agree that limiting to 12 plants is a great idea for Northglenn, actually. So, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
here in City Hall Council Chambers.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into resolutions. CR 156. Joanna, would you read the title?
A resolution approving the legal services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Fisher Brown Bartlett and Gunn PC.
Motion for approval. Thank you. Jim, will you give us the background on this resolution, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a resolution to approve an annual contract with FBBG. PC was our special water counsel. We've retained them as our water counsel since 1985. They have incredible institutional knowledge of our water supplies, and they've helped us over the years, of course, get our water rights changed for consumptive use. Just as an example of their recent work, during 2016 and 2017, they worked diligently on the change case for 906 inches of church ditch water, which was owned by the city, but we had to convert for domestic use. That was completed in April of this year, and this water is now available for our system, and it has a value of over $28 million. So just as an example of the things that they've been able to do for us over the years. We estimate that the cost for these services is around $200,000 per year, and there's a table there of some of the expenditures since 2010. And so attached to this memorandum is a resolution which, if approved, would authorize the mayor to execute the contract between Northglenn and FBBG in an amount not to exceed $200,000, and we recommend approval of this resolution. And Mr. Willett is here from Public Works to answer any additional questions you may have too.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. I have a couple of questions. One, I see that we've worked with this firm, and actually you mentioned that we've worked with them since 1985, which is actually longer than I've been alive. So I'm just curious, when was the last time this went out for a bid? Have we considered other folks for this particular contract?
We have not. I don't even know if we bid it in 1985, frankly, but I guess I'd ask Mr. Willett to see if he knows when we sent it out to bid. Just my editorial, my experience, not only in this community but other communities, is having your water council know your supply system backwards and forwards is really critical, and there are very few engineers or, attorneys in the water field that aren't maybe conflicted by another client, and so that also puts some constraints on us, but I'll defer to David.
know this was bid out in 1985. It hasn't been out since 2009, since I've been here. I just want to add to the city manager's comments that our water rights attorneys are highly specialized and highly confidential area that they work in. FBBG has gained an extensive knowledge of our water system. They've gone through a change case already, as Church Ginch, as the city manager alluded to earlier. We're going to go through the FICO changes now. I can say that they're compensated, I think, within industry standard, and that specialized group, and other municipalities pay their water rights attorneys. I would say at this particular junction it would be very difficult to go out and find another water right firm to represent us as well as FBBG does at the moment.
Great, thank you. I have a second. Is that okay, Mayor? Of course. Okay, thank you. So in looking through my packet for the rest of the contracts, I noticed that every single other contract that's proposed this evening has a fee schedule, and that's not something that I saw in this particular contract. Is there a reason that it's not included?
We generally don't, simply because we've used them so often. We do monitor. I mean, they don't raise their fees very often, but I can certainly get those fees for council and provide them for you.
Okay. I feel really strongly that it's important that the public be able to be aware of how much we're paying. I think it's a simple transparency measure. Is it possible to postpone this vote until we're able to see those, that fee schedule, since it does seem to be something that's provided by every single other contract that I've seen to date?
I just might add, so most of the other contracts are trade contract or agreements for provide services to the city, not professional services as this one is. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference. I can certainly provide those, but I would urge council members that are right in the middle of working on our FICO change cases right now, and I'd hate to delay that. I don't know how soon we could get back in front of council with those fees, but I can provide their hourly rates for you for each of the members of the firm that provide services to us.
It's just concerning when they're willing to outline how much they pay their secretary staff hourly, but they're not willing to publicly disclose how much they are making. So I would personally, I'll be a no vote until I see those rates.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear, they're not publicly not wanting to show them. I just didn't put them in the memo tonight.
Okay.
It's not something we usually do, but I can certainly provide that for council.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
So David,
No, go ahead.
possibly if you could just email the council, the data that is requested, and then we can move forward.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and that way you would have it.
Yeah, because I definitely would not be into tabling it tonight. I think this is very important. Ever since I got on council, and you've kind of been the teacher of water rights, and it's so important, the historical knowledge that they give us. I honestly don't have an issue with it, so I would not be.
And I do want to add that FBBG will be here in person in an executive session, at least tentatively. We're scheduling for January 8th, and they'll be briefing council.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, Joanna, will you open the vote, please? Thank you, David.
A resolution approving a professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Lamp, Reinerson and Associates doing business as TZA Water Engineers for water and water rights engineering.
Second.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is our second water-related contract that we execute annually. This one is for our engineers, which is the company of Lamp, Reinerson and Associates, doing business as TZA Water Engineers. Again, they provided engineering support and assistance directly with us as well as our attorney since 1997. There's a table, again, of annual expenditures since 2010. As I referenced earlier, there was a lot of effort last year, so the 2016 and 17, I think, are a bit outliers. They're a little higher than they normally were. So our recommendation is to go with a contract for $150,000 for 2018. Of course, we do any amendments to that, we'll be bringing that back in front of you. But again, this memorandum then is, there's a resolution attached that would authorize the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Northglenn and TZA Water Engineers for specialized water engineering services in an amount not to exceed $150,000, and we recommend approval.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 6 in section, I believe 8, I'm curious if illegal aliens is federally mandated language. It seems to be pretty antiquated and kind of offensive. So can you shed some light on why that's in there?
I can. It is actually mandated by state law based on federal direction. In fact, Mayor Pro Tem Esquivel tried to work with the state legislature to get that state statute changed a couple years ago unsuccessfully, but it is in there because of state law mandates.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? You know what, Jim, I just had a quick question. So it said that the change of use case for 906, God, I can't even read my own writing, inches of church ditch water was completed in April of 2017. And then it states that there will be an upcoming FICO change case. So is there something that's coming up soon, or?
Yes, the church ditch was completed, and then the FICO is a separate source. And
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you. All right, Joanna, will you open the vote, please?
Vote is open.
A resolution approving agreements between the City of Northglenn and American West Construction LLC and the City of Northglenn and C&L Water Solutions Incorporated for emergency pipeline repairs.
Move to approve. There's a second from Meredith, yes?
Yeah, sorry, louder. Second.
More cowbell girl.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Again, this is a resolution to approve water contracts for utility emergency response with C&L Water Solutions and American West Construction. So we have one memo, one resolution, but there are two separate contracts. The emergency response contract provides for repairs to the water distribution system and the sewer collection systems, largely where we don't have the field equipment or expertise where we can actually go and do this work. And invariably, as it would imply, it's an emergency. And so we really need to be able to have people on call with those equipment that they can get out there quickly. In addition, in the event of a natural disaster, FEMA always wants to make sure we have these types of contracts in place that we can call upon. There's some expenditures listed in the memo since 2013. You can see in 2015 and 16, those were very rough years, and council will recall, some of you, that we had to come back multiple times and amend our contract, which we would do this again if we exceeded this amount. I want to point out that the resolution is for $100,000, which would be divided up amongst those contractors depending on how we use them. So it's not 100 for each; it's 100 total is the appropriation that we're requesting tonight. And then also authorizing me to increase that amount by $50,000 up to my spending limit in the event, again, we have a real emergency and it's going to cost us more than that $100,000, or if we're really getting up to the limit, we want to be able to have that flexibility. So we are recommending approval, and of course, Mr. Willett's here to answer some questions too.
Okay, thank you. Questions, discussion?
I have a quick question. So for the 2015, 2016 that were really bad years, I mean, costs were $400,000. So where does that money come from? So like if we have an issue in 2018, how are we going to fill that gap to get to like $400,000 again?
It's the source of the funds is from the Water and Wastewater Fund, and so it would come from the fund reserves.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open. A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Sturgeon Electric Company Incorporated for traffic signal inspection, testing, and emergency response services.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jim, could you give a description, please?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And members of council. Again, this is a recommendation to approve the 2018 annual contract to provide the services outlined, traffic signal inspection, testing, emergency responses. We have 38 traffic signals currently in 23 school zone flashers that are within the city. And this has been roughly the amount we've spent annually. And Mr. Willett's here to answer any questions on this, but we do recommend approval that would authorize the mayor to execute the contract between Northglenn and Sturgeon Electric Company for these services in an amount not to exceed $115,000.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question. I think it may be just a community concern. I've had quite a few community members approach me about the traffic signals not catching motorcycles. So I don't know if that's a part of their work, if they're going to be testing and improving the quality of the signal, or I just thought that was an interesting community concern that came forward.
Most of these, a lot of our signals have photo detection now that they would catch a motorcycle, but there's still some old signals that basically have the wires in the street. If the motorcycle isn't synced up right, sometimes they may not detect them, so that's probably a true case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with this contract, though, do they go through and improve the quality of each signal to get them all on the same level, or no?
No, that would be millions of dollars. Yeah, no, we try to do what we can to keep the signals upgraded, and we do capital work as we can, replace controllers, replace cable underneath the streets. We put fiber optics in as we can, but we can only do 1 or 2 a year. It's about at the pace we're on.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. I was just needing to respond to the community, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for David? Okay, seeing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
A resolution approving an eighth addendum to the professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Providence Infrastructure Consultants for engineering services for the wastewater treatment plant, headworks, and clarifier project.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So contrary to the other actions you just took, this is not an annual contract from Public Works. So I'm going to spend just a moment explaining this one. This is an addendum to the engineering services contract for the wastewater treatment plant headworks and clarifier project. You'll see in there that we entered into an agreement with Providence back in October of 2014 to provide the engineering services, and they are nearly complete, but we do need to do this final addendum so they can finish out their work. Moltz Construction was chosen as the construction contractor. They gave a substantial completion notification in October. So a lot of this, again, is just to wrap up this project. The reason that this cost is higher than we anticipated was largely because the City of Thornton objected to our Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment site application, which some of you are familiar with. And so these costs are directly attributable to that extra engineering effort that was required for the project. We did not anticipate that appeal. And so the details are on the second page of the memo, and attached to this is the resolution which, if approved, would authorize the mayor to execute the addendum between the city and Providence Infrastructure Consultants in the amount of $68,998, and we recommend approval.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would move to approve.
Did we not get a motion again? It's okay. I'll get with the program eventually. Thank you. Second from Meredith? Or Jordan, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. All right, now are there any questions? None? Okay. Hearing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please? That you guys are sitting here and I'm thinking, what? What are you waiting for?
We'll go fast.
Okay, it's all good. Can we move to CR 161? Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving a service agreement between the City of Northglenn and Waste Management of Colorado Incorporated for calendar year 2018 single stream recycling services.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council. This is a resolution to approve a contract to provide recycling services. Several years ago, Northglenn and Thornton partnered on the bid process for both the landfill as well as single stream recycling services. And Waste Management was selected as the service provider. Under the contract, we had the option to renew annually for a period of 5 years. 2018 is year 5. We're bringing this forward tonight. Waste Management did offer a variable rate per ton for the calendar year 2018, but they're not offering fixed rates because of the volatility in commodity prices. And you can see that our revenue does vary with that pricing. Sometimes it's negative. We were fortunate this year so far, we're up about $15,000 for recycling. But it is definitely a constant challenge in trying to get some value out of what we're recycling here. So we do recommend approval, which would authorize the mayor to execute the contract between the city and Waste Management for the 2018 recycling service. And in conversation with Mr. Willett, we'd be looking at bidding that out then for 2019 at some point in the future here.
Thank you. Questions? Jenny?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So on page 15, there's an overview of the rebate tip fee calculation, and it appears that we pay a base fee. How is that base fee determined, and is it or the calculation included somewhere in the contract?
It's a great question, council member. I don't know the exact answer to your question, but I can explain how it all works. Obviously, we bring plastics, glass, materials to the recycle center. They call that material. We get a materials credit for that. And then the base fee that you're referring to is basically the cost that that Waste Management charges to basically process and package and send off the materials to be recycled. I'm just going to assume at this point it's part of their operational cost, but I can certainly find out how they calculate that. It varies sometimes from month to month. And what happens is then is they subtract their base fee from what we get or what the current commodity costs are, and that is basically a commodity value. In the last couple of months, that's been negative, so we have to actually pay a tipping fee. If it's positive, we get $10 per ton. The positive value, we split that fee with them on top of the base fee. When commodity prices were really good 4 or 5 years ago, we really did well as far as bringing in some revenue for our recycled materials. But between their operational costs to process the material, and the low cost and the variable costs of commodities, we've been barely breaking even to date. But I can find that cost out for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd definitely like to know, do we do any sort of, do we try to anticipate what the costs are going to be, whether we're going to be in the positive or the negative, or do we just not do it at all since it's such a very tiny amount of money in the grand scheme of our budget?
No, it's not that. It's the commodity prices vary from month to month so drastically sometimes it's just hard to predict them. So, the cost to basically package them up, separate them and package them up is generally pretty constant. It's always around $75 is what their base fee is, and so it doesn't change a whole lot. Okay. So if the commodity prices are really low, we're going to pay a pretty big tipping fee even at the recycle center because they just have to send it to the landfill.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Meredith?
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Jason that mentioned that it doesn't matter if we increase the quantity, it's about the commodity value. So like if we were to encourage more people to recycle, that didn't seem to make that big of a difference because it's based on the price we get for the product, is that correct?
Well, pretty much so. I mean, the cost is based per ton at the center. That's right. So it depends really what the value of the commodity is, not the quantity. Yeah.
Is there anything we can do as consumers or not consumers, producers of recycling stuff? That's a professional term, recycling stuff. But is there something we can do to do a better job of what we're recycling or how we're recycling our items?
We've done a pretty good job thus far. I mean, we've got a tremendous participation level. We don't have a big diversion level, and it's just training our residents. It's getting out there in the school systems and advocating to the children, and they go home and they tell their parents about the good things about being an environmental steward. Right. And even if we have to pay a small fee, a tipping fee at the recycle center, it's still quite significantly less than we have to pay at the tipping fee at the landfill. So it's still, that hasn't canceled out. So, so I think there's some still good benefits, and we do, I think, a good job getting out in the school systems and advocating for that.
Does this include our school-based recycling?
We don't pick up at schools or apartment complexes. I think what we prefer to do is get the word out to the kids and their parents and the teachers, and they do a great job of advocating to the residents, and they in turn then do their recycling at their houses.
Okay, so when the schools recycle, does that go through Adams County or?
No, they can bring to the recycle centers. We have drop-offs, and we have I think 3 drop-offs in the community. They're certainly welcome to bring their recycles down there.
No, I was just wondering, I think schools have their own large recycling bin.
Yeah, well, then they might have a service that provides that for them.
Oh, but it's not included?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Julie? Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, our recycling services don't go to our businesses either, is that correct?
We don't go to businesses or apartment complexes. Or the schools.
Is there a reason why we don't go to apartments and to businesses?
Yeah, well, primarily there's a couple of reasons. One is we have very large trash trucks. It's hard to get in there. They have generally very big dumpsters, which we're not capable. As you know, most of our trucks, we have one going on 2 rear loads, and then all the rest of them are automated trucks that they're designed to pick up basically 96-gallon trash containers. They're not designed to go pick up the really big containers, so we'd have to retrofit all of our vehicles or buy new vehicles to be able to provide that service, and then apartment complexes would have to be able to provide, be able to get us in there to pick up their bigger dumpsters. So we just haven't made that effort into the businesses or apartment complexes.
Can I go ahead? Yes. Thank you. Is there ever a scenario in which you could work with the apartment complex owners to get the poly carts, I don't know, filled up and then brought to the curb every week? The idea that recycling is not available to a large portion of our population, you know, kind of makes it feel like, like recycling is a luxury, and I think that it's something that we all have to figure out how we do our part in. And so what ideas have you explored to be able to make it accessible?
We haven't, you know, we had a recycling committee a while back. I don't know if that's still in existence, but it's pretty difficult for us to provide that service to businesses just because of the logistics, you know. And I just want to say, recycling is available to them. I would hope the apartment complexes present and make that availability with their provider for trash services. They also provide recycling. And again, since they're in our community, I mean, individual tenants there can certainly bring their recycles to our recycle centers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Maureen, for you. Isn't there a state law that fits into us up as trash or recycling?
We can't mandate that multifamily and commercial use the single service provider that the city uses, but there's no prohibition against offering it. We just can't mandate it.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, David. Mm-hmm. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and USA Construction Incorporated for the water treatment plant filter media replacement project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Was that Meredith or Joyce on this? Meredith? Okay. Meredith was the second. You guys are going to have to be louder. I don't know. What happened? Kyle was always so forceful, and we knew.
Raise your hand.
We're good. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is a resolution to approve a contract for the water treatment plant filter media replacement. 2018 will be the third of a 4-year project here. The typical life of a filter media is around 10 years, and all our filter media was last replaced in 2002. The current replacement cycle, we did 2 in 15, 2 in 17. We'll do 2 more next year and 2 in 19. And that will be the last cycle of these replacements then for another decade. We do need a contractor to do this work, and so we did a publicly solicited bids in October. And we did receive 3 bids. The low bid from USA Construction was checked for completeness based on the work they've performed in the past. Staff recommend approval of that contract. And again, this is for 2 of those filters. Our budget was $185,000, and thankfully we've got a resolution in front of you that would authorize the mayor to execute a contract between the city and USA Construction for this project in the amount of $124,500, so well below budget. And then if there's any changes in the scope of work, we request that you authorize me as part of this on behalf of the city to approve changes that would bring the total up to $136,950. The reason for that is that sometimes the underdrain cap material needs replacing, and we don't really know until we get in there. So that's why we got a little contingency on there. And we recommend approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Jenny?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple of questions. One, aside from coming in with the lowest bid, are there any other factors that are considered in awarding this bid?
Yes, there is. As always, we check for references, and this particular contractor has provided work for us the last 3 years, or last couple of years anyway, and they've done great work. Industry, we looked at other municipalities. We asked them as well. So we check into quite a few, at least 2 or 3 resources before we award a contract, not just a low bid. And this year, you may see me come back and recommend to council that we take bids that aren't the low bid, and we'll provide rationale for that as well.
Okay, great. Two other questions about this particular contractor. Have they always completed previous projects in the past on time and on budget?
Yes, they have.
Great. And what's their record of on-the-job accidents? Do you maintain that data?
None that I know of,
Okay.
at least on our sites.
Okay, that's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please? Thank you, David. Joanna, the title, please.
A resolution adopting the Fifth Amendment to the amended and restated City of Northglenn General Employees Pension Plan and Trust.
Move to approve.
Marcy, Jim?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. There's one memo here and two resolutions because one affects the general employees pension fund and one is for the police employee pension fund. This essentially is amending the plan language to allow employees from the police plan to participate in the general plan if their status changes. So for example, if a police officer wants to move into a civilian position in another department in the city, this cleans that up and allows them to maintain their employment with the city and really references the group trust, if you will, that is part of the pension plan. So there's a variety of amendments. On the first page, it talks about the amendments to the general plan. And then on the second page, it talks about the police employee plan. So we do recommend approval of this amendment, which is CR 163 as well as CR 164. And Mr. Loveland, of course, worked with the pension boards to make these recommendations as well. And he's here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please? R164, Joanna, the title, please.
A resolution adopting the Fifth Amendment to the amended and restated City of Northglenn Police Money Purchase Pension Plan.
Approve. Second. Jim, background, please.
Comments?
Okay, same. Okay. Any additional questions? No. No. Joanna, would you open the vote, please? The vote is open. Thank you. Joanna, the title, please.
A resolution approving a professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Allied Waste Systems of Colorado, LLC for calendar year 2018 landfill services.
To approve. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, this is the second contract that's related to that joint bid we did for recycling services under CR 161. This is for landfill services. And again, Allied Waste was the winning bidder back then. And so we have the option of, again, of renewing this for one-year periods through 2018. So this is in the same category. We'd be looking at doing a procurement next year for 2019. One comment here that I wanted to point out is that beginning in 2018, Allied Waste is no longer going to accept mattresses and box springs at no cost. And so there's going to be a direct charge of $20 that'll be imposed upon us. Believe it or not, we collect over 1,500 mattresses and box springs on an annual basis, which is about $30,000 of impact. We're really looking at alternatives at this point. We don't have a proposal for you tonight about how we're going to cover that cost, other than the sanitation fund will have to absorb it at this point, barring a change in the rates or direct charges for these types of services. So we do recommend approval of the resolution, which would authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Allied Waste Systems of Colorado in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Marcy?
So, Jim, thanks for pointing that out, because I think it's really important for our residents to understand that there is for that, especially when we've had discussions about raising trash rates and gas. These are the kind of things that impact the decisions that we make. When you
have more information? Are you going to put it up for a study session? Because, well, I think it's important to strike a balance of, you know, obviously absorbing it right now, but I just don't think that the city or the residents should absorb 31,000. But I don't want it in my neighborhood.
Yes, we think it's a valuable service so that we don't have mattresses being dumped, right? But yeah, Mr. Will and I were talking briefly this morning. We'll come up with some alternatives and bring that back to you for consideration.
Any other questions? Since you're working with Thornton a little bit on this, have they brought up any alternatives, do you know of, with the mattresses, for the mattresses?
Not to my knowledge. And I would say that we...
And what are they, I guess? Are there alternatives that you've heard of?
The reason, I mean, we're not offering any real solutions to this at this point, except until we monitor this, is we didn't find out about this until like, I think it was October or November, after we've already planned and appropriated our budget. So, you know, so we'll just keep an eye on this. I haven't spoken with Thornton on what they're doing at this particular point in time, but I mean, the obvious is to add it to our pickup charges and at some point in time. But like the city manager says, once we get a better handle on it, we'll come back and report to council.
Thank you, David. Any other questions?
One last question. So, if we can't figure out a reasonable solution, is there another company that Thornton and us would like to try and work out with in the future for 2019, perhaps, for another contract?
We only procure with Thornton, and we have the contract is written so that when we come to each of our respective councils, we can award to different vendors who actually bid on that contract. When we go out in 2019, we'll have to try to figure out something. I'm not sure. We've already been told by all of the landfills it costs $20, and they all are quickly to join together, so it doesn't make any difference where you go. It's going to cost $20, so we'll just have to figure it out ourselves.
Yep.
How to pay for it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? I think it's just a sign of the times, right? I mean, we all create so much trash and the landfills are, you know, full, and we have to pay, just like we have to do with our recycled electronics. So it might be something that people will have to pay part of, maybe partial fees for the city and for the residents, I don't know. Anyway, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
Vote is open.
CR 165 passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move into communications, and I think I'll start with Jordan this week.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Nothing? Okay. Meredith?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to the first Youth Commission, and I can see why that was hard for you to let go. Those young people are amazing, absolutely amazing. I was blown away. I had so much fun listening to them go back and forth about their service projects and all their excited ideas that they have for the community. It was just amazing. They're just smart and professional, and yet still kids, so they're fun, and I loved their energy. So we have some really exciting projects on the horizon, but I'm going to let them share those. I'm not going to give it away. It was fun, though.
Yes, I would be over at the historic farmhouse, Stonehawker. We hosted the first holiday business after hours, and so that was really a lot of fun. And it was very successful. And we had about 80 people there, I mean, off and on. So we were really excited about it. And a lot of folks said they had not even known about the farmhouse, and so it was another way to get the word out about historic preservation and also the Stonehawker farmhouse. And then I just want to mention also that I want to thank all the business sponsors that gave money to Rudolph Reading Raffle. These sponsors actually donated money for books that were given away at Noel Northglenn and also at Old Fashioned Christmas over at Stonehawker. And those businesses are Northglenn businesses, so I really want to recognize them. They are the Northglenn Auto Body Shop, Dodge Signs, Elevation Lighting Services, Bushing Chinese Restaurant, Texas Roadhouse here in Northglenn, and then we had a couple anonymous folks, just really did not want to be recognized. But thank you to all of them. I mean, it was really a special. So thank you.
and I attended that event, and it was very well attended. I would like to start with just a little bit of business, and this is regarding council appointments. Since we have Joyce finally sworn in, I just would like to give the council a heads up that she will be serving on the Finance Committee, Performance Appraisal Committee, the Oath Committee, Planning Commission, Rocky Flats Stewardship, and she is a Vail Board member. And then Jenny Wilford is going to be added to the Legislative Policy Committee, and we will talk about these appointments at our January 8th meeting. The resolutions will come forward then. So those are the changes. As far as what I've been doing, so this is what the mayor does, because I really appreciate all the things Joyce did, because I have this list of things that crack up to me, although I'm going crazy. I did attend the Adams County Open Space Grants with Amanda and Dana and Mayor Pro Tem Antonio Escobel to accept the 1.7 mil award for the Northwest Open Space Improvement Project. So I'd like to thank Adams County because that was a generous grant for that project. I attended the holiday open house at the new Senior Hub offices. Joyce Downing was also present. They are located off of 90th and Grant now. We were given a tour and explanations of the programs that are offered for the seniors. It was nice to go there. I attended the Employee Appreciation Lunch at Cinzetti's. Always enjoy that event, talking to all of the staff and just talking to people that I don't get to see very often and finding out what's going on and thanking them for their service to the city. I also was at the Governor's Mansion for the holiday open house for elected officials. That was great to be in attendance there, and the mansion was beautiful as always, decorated in a Nutcracker theme. And my highlight was actually getting to meet with former Governor Dick Lamb, because I do actually admire him and some of the just the literature that he's put out I've read, and I was honored to meet and talk with him. I held my first coffee with the mayor this morning, and I would like to thank Joanna for attending and sharing an overview of the past election. It was very informative, and I think everyone appreciated it. The NAHF, which is the Arts and Humanities Foundation, received a $1,500 grant from the Nathan B. and Florence R. Burt Foundation, and this grant is going to be applied to the Northglenn Youth Theater Academy Scholarship Program. And that is a program that will offer kids who can't afford to attend a theater class, they can actually use the scholarship program. What's good about this grant is that the SCFD Cultural Council likes to see a diversification in the funding from many sources, so we may actually receive more money from SCFD this year because of the diversification. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going. There's been a delay in installing the new sculptures going in at the Webster Lake Promenade development, and it's due to the concrete. It's not been poured. We removed the old concrete pads because they couldn't handle the grasses that were going in. The new ones have not been put in yet. So unfortunately, what we thought would be an installation by the end of the year for the new native grasses sculptures will probably not be happening anytime soon. I mean soon, but not by the end of the year. But I guess we don't know that for a fact unless you know something that I don't know. The very first a cappella series will be Blue Jupiter, and they're a nationally acclaimed group. So I have heard this is the one not to miss this year. It will be on January 19th in the theater at 7:30. Senior bake sale at Noel Northglenn netted the NSO with close to $1,300. And they also elected new officers, and they will be sworn in at their next meeting. And I believe that's it.
Wow.
I know, I had to type that all out, too.
Awesome. No, thank you. Yeah. Probably the only thing I want to promote is the Hillbilly Redneck Christmas performance. That is great.
Is that the proper title?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's the real title.
Hillbilly Redneck Christmas. And I and grandson attended last week for Friday night. It was awesome. It was just awesome. It's worth it. That's all.
Very good.
Oh, I said coffee with the mayor and the grant. Yeah.
Well, I attended the business after hours on Friday, and it was great. They plus for sure to see all the businesses come out. Great conversation, and you know what I think was really great is to be able to start seeing the businesses that are making connections to those after hours. I saw a number of businesses
that are on Melody Drive that are making connections, helping each other out. So I think that's a really positive thing, and thanks to the for allowing the Economic Development Office to host over there. I also attended coffee with the mayor this morning, and I am putting it out to the rest of the wards that Ward 4 dominates the attendance, and we need 1, 2, and 3 to step up and come to those board meetings, or I mean the coffee with the mayor. And then the last thing is our ward meeting. Julie and I will be hosting our board meeting on January 17th here in council chambers. So be putting that on your calendar for here, and postcard.
Nothing for me.
Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. I have a couple of items. One, I want to say a heartfelt welcome back, Councilmember Downing. It's very nice to serve with you. 2 is I attended my first Colorado Municipal League Policy Committee meeting last Friday. There were a whole lot of things that we voted on when it comes to the position that CML was going to be taking on a number of pieces of upcoming legislation for 2017. And I'll chat with the mayor afterwards, after this meeting, to get a better sense of how you all want me to start presenting that information, or how you all might want to be involved. Let's see. I attended a business after hours event with many of the folks in this room, and it was a whole lot of fun to meet so many great business owners. It was also really nice feeling like the space was really full. I mean, I felt like I was bumping into everybody, and I feel like it's an exciting time to be in Northglenn, and I'm going to keep saying that. I also attended the holiday celebration at the marketplace on Saturday, and it was fantastic. There was definitely a line for the Santa rides. My son told Santa he wants a bird for Christmas. Who knew? And then I also joined other council members for coffee with the mayor this morning. And I have to say that I'm very deeply proud of Ward 4 because they do continue to show up in record numbers, and they're always very involved, and that's exceptional. And then finally, I have noticed that we have a lot of vacancies on our boards and commissions. And so I'd like to challenge every council member to ask 1 to 2 residents to apply by the next time we all come together, so that we can really make sure that we've got a diversity of folks and views and life experiences represented across those commissions. That's all for me. Thank you.
So I do have to say, and Joanna added to the Ward 4 competition that she said, you know, most of the voters or most of the votes came from Ward 4 in the election, right? Or that they vote.
They typically have the highest turnout as far as wards. Okay. Yes.
So I would accept that as a competition, all you other wards now to. But I think we have to move the coffee with the mayor around too, because it's always held in Ward 4. So I think it needs to move, and then you'll get more people in. Anyway.
Glen. Come to the Glen.
With you.
Yeah, come hang out the Glen.
For breakfast.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a few things. First of all, attended the Flat Rock Police Training Academy graduation last Thursday. So we have 2 new officers that graduated. And Chief May is down in Highlands Ranch tonight at a different academy with 2 additional officers that are graduating. But I wanted to invite you all to attend their swearing-in ceremony, which will be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in the chambers here. It's great to welcome our new officers and show them our support, so I will definitely be there. A couple administrative things. First of all, hopefully you got all your name badges. If you didn't, I saw them on Susan's desk. They should be in your mailbox. If not, they'll be there tomorrow, I promise. And we should have business cards by Friday. We had some printing challenges, so you should have business cards this week as well. Let's see. Couldn't do our group photo tonight, so assuming Councilmember Brown is able to make it next week, we're planning on having the photographer come back for the group photo. I think we've got all the individual ones out of the way, but that'll be important to try to get that done next week. We do start at 6. It's a study session, so 5:30, 5:45 is probably sufficient to do those photos. Also, we have added a tour of city buildings. We invited the entire council, but of course, if the new council members can make time for that, that'd be great. It's December 21st at 9 o'clock. We're going to start at City Hall. Mr. Willett assures me that even if we don't take the interstate, we can get through all the buildings in 3 hours. So we'll be pretty efficient at doing that. Again, that's Thursday the 21st at 9 o'clock. And then just one final thing. This is for Councilmember Sowers as well as Councilmember Wilford. We are going to have a legislative committee meeting next Monday, starting at 5. We typically meet around 5:30 before regular council meetings, but we wanted to squeeze one in before the end of the year. Give you a chance to meet Jeff Wilson, our lobbyist, and I'll make sure and get the legislative policy statement out to all of you again in my report so that you can see that, and we'll make sure you've got that for your reference. Yes?
Just because of the delay with the picture now, to have our things ready to go by, I think we'll have them by opening day.
You mean for the policy book? That's why I'm really pushing to try to do this next week. Yeah, what Councilmember Sowers is referencing is we do a legislative policy booklet. So rather than just handing out papers to legislators, we have this nice formatted booklet. It will include a picture of the council members on the back. So the group photo you take next week will be used for that. So we'll rush and get it done before session opens.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
You bet. And that was it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Corey?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Nothing? You haven't had anything for weeks.
I think that's a good thing.
That's a really good thing.
Next, public invited to be heard, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Statements should be related to an item previously addressed by council during the meeting. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? All right. Seeing none, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.
What are you